This week on Head to Head, lazy marketing from Lucasfilm.
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So the first thing you guys might notice is you're not seeing our wonderful, lovely faces.
How unfortunate.
Yeah, I know. Daryl, you're probably not overly, shall we say, disappointed
Great.
that this isn't happening. Daryl doesn't always like to be on video, guys.
I don't, but it's all right.
But I mean, the thing is that while you will still be able to see these on YouTube, who knows, maybe that's where you're listening to this right now, you're just going to see the title cards because we just had to take a little bit of a break from doing the whole video thing.
But we'll be back.
Yeah, we'll be back. Probably in a couple of weeks, actually. So this episode and the next episode won't have video, but the ones after that, we'll be back. All right, so you ready to go to the Cantina?
Yes, I am thirsty.
All right, well, let's do it. What do we got first?
All right, man. So I've heard that episode 9 principal photography has come to an end. So I'm excited about that. It means that, we're another step closer to a trailer. Hopefully, I know everyone's been speculating that we might get around Super Bowl time. So I don't really know, but
yeah, we'll see. Well, the ironic thing about this, we're recording this, of course, the night before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But they're not going to hear this until the morning after the Super Bowl. So
yeah. Yeah, I think though and if it does drop, I don't think so. I don't think they're going to, spend the time just yet, especially since principal photography just wrapped up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that they're going to do it yet either. Principal photography just wrapped up. It's a little bit too early, I think, in the marketing.
Yeah, and especially with Endgame, like we talked about before,
yep,
kind of being like the front runner of, the movies that people are really anxious to see. So I think that's kind of the trailer is going to be on the back burner. But hopefully, I think by Star Wars Celebration in April.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when that's going to drop.
And it's the unfortunate thing, too, is that even though there's still 2 or 3 weeks, just so everybody knows, I did submit Daryl and I to go to Star Wars Celebration this year with a press pass, but so far I haven't heard anything back.
Yeah.
The Lords of the Sith podcast heard something back, so they're going to be there.
Okay.
So,
awesome.
Give those guys...
Congrats, guys.
Yeah, congratulations. They got a really good podcast going over there. I've heard a couple of their episodes, so, have fun. It would be nice if we can go over there.
Yeah, hopefully next year.
Because it's sold out. I didn't even know it sold out.
Yeah.
I went to get tickets for us, and the whole thing sold out, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I could get us a press pass, because I remember we wanted to do some reporting from there anyway.
Yeah, and that would have been really fun and really cool and actually if we got to see the trailer there. Oh man. Yeah,
and we could have reported on it like immediately.
Immediately. We would.
Yeah, it would have been a no-brainer. But yeah, I mean, it is exciting though that even though I don't think we're going to get a trailer, let's just say this month, I do think that we are going to get a trailer probably at Celebration. That's when we're going to get the teaser trailer, and then I think full trailers are going to start hitting around July or August.
Now, if I recall correctly, wasn't the Force Awakens trailer kind of long, the teaser one?
Yeah, it was. I think it was
like a minute or something. Yeah, like a minute.
Might have even been a minute and a half.
Yeah, somewhere around. So let's just play with that. Do you think we're seeing that this is the last one? Like this is the last saga film theoretically? Do you think we're going to get like a longer trailer?
I think a minute's a safe bet.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be any longer. Yeah, I don't. Well, it's a good question.
Yeah, because
we have gotten 30-second trailers before, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's anybody's guess, and who knows? Maybe The Force Awakens. I don't actually remember how long the first teaser trailer for Force Awakens was.
I think it was around.
I thought it was about a minute, but I could be wrong. I think that. It could be that it was like 30 or 40 seconds. It's just there was so much to digest in that.
Yeah, we were just so happy.
Yeah, we were so excited about it.
I mean, just to finally see Han and everybody back in the Falcon and everything. It was just awesome.
It was cool. And I mean, of course, Han Solo didn't make an appearance in the teaser.
Right, he was in the...
But he was in that second one. Yeah, the first full trailer.
The Chewie We're Home.
The Chewie We're Home thing, yeah. That was... But like you said... Episode 9 principal photography is done. We're a little bit closer to getting a trailer. it's becoming a little bit more real. So we're just going to have to see, what happens.
Okay. Well, the next thing I wanted to talk about is who is your favorite Imperial officer?
Oh.
So I'm going back to the Empire days, not the First Order, but the actual Empire. Who would be your favorite Imperial officer?
Wasn't it, wasn't General Veers the guy that was like in the AT-AT, and he was all like, the shield will be down in moments. You may start your landing.
the super proper one. I don't know if that was...
I know that...
No, Vader told Veers to do, like, General Veers...
Prepare your men. Yeah, right. And then he was... I
don't know if that was him.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the same. I think that might just been another... Well, yeah, that's a good question. But I think, I know you're probably like looking it up or something.
Well, I'm looking up because I'm trying to remember the actor, Julian. I kept wanting to say Jonathan. Julian Glover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was him.
Okay, that was Veers?
Maximilian Veers.
Okay.
That guy definitely is my favorite Imperial officer just because he was so smooth and he was so cool. And I mean, he just, everything was just like, he just had it down.
He was calm, and especially
he was calm
when Vader popped up on his little pad or whatever that thing was. I mean, it's like a little hologram pad, and it's like a little mini Vader just talking to you. Or he actually didn't talk. He just stood there with his hands on his hips.
Yeah, and I mean, he was just, the whole thing, exactly. And it was just...
He's like, she'll be down. And it's funny, he already knew what he wanted.
He knew what he wanted. He knew what he was doing. He never seemed to sweat anything. He just, he seemed like he was pretty good at his job. I don't think he ended up getting force choked or anything, so... I
think he got blown up with one of those grenades in the belly of one of those AT-ATs. But I think my favorite been... it's not Piet. The one that actually...
not Ozzel.
Well, no, Ozzel. Ozzel was... he's funny to me just because he kept trying to find ways to get around Vader, and Vader wasn't having it. So I kind of enjoyed him.
Mm-hmm.
But, of course I have to say Tarkin. I mean, that's an obvious one. Tarkin was really cool. Just the fact that he's the only person who can actually keep Vader in line. But that's kind of like a easy one.
Not to mention the fact that that's kind of like, he was sort of like a main character. I mean, when you first brought this up as a possible topic or whatever, I was thinking in terms of like kind of the lowly Imperial officers, not
the big guns.
Unless you want to count the guys that were what's that guy's name?
Which movie?
I keep wanting to say Moffat or something. It's the original one. He's the one that was like, "Don't frighten us with your sorcerer voice,
that
Lord
guy,
Vader."
Yeah. Yeah, the guy who was mouthing off to Vader and got choked.
Exactly.
In New Hope. Yeah, that's... But I think it's... Because Piet got choked, though. No, that was Captain Nita. That was Captain Nita who got choked. So, yeah, Piet. Yeah, because he was another calm one. Because that was like one of Vader's favorites.
Yeah, but, I mean, at the same time, he was kind of... he was calm, but he wasn't calm, if that makes sense. Because he was always on edge.
Well, yeah.
Mahdi. Admiral Mahdi, that's the guy's name.
Who got choked?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think... Yeah, Piet was cool to me just because he had that reverence for Vader, but he still was kind of like, all right, I'm going to take responsibility for all his... he was just almost like a stand-up guy.
No, yeah, Piet definitely was one of those guys that I would say he was almost like humanized to me.
Yeah.
Like he didn't seem like he was that bad of a guy.
You're right, and I think that's kind of why Vader liked him. It's just it seemed like he wasn't so... Because you could tell some of those guys were arrogant about their title.
Oh, not only their title, but just the whole empire in general.
Yeah, and I think Vader was just kind of like overall that, but I think Piet was just kind of like, look, this is my job. I'm just trying to do the best that I can.
Well, that's one of the things that I think is interesting, because if you look at where Star Wars is going now, they're trying to humanize the empire more. Instead of it just being this big evil organization, almost like the Nazis or whatever, It's like they're trying to show that the people in the Empire actually thought they were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this was begun in the prequel era because you learn the Empire actually was what the Republic kind of turned into in a way.
Yeah, it started off good, and then it kind of just did that shift.
When Palpatine did the whole Empire thing, it was technically evil, but a lot of the guys, the Separatists were the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
The people that comprised the Empire were actually, just everyday working guys. And they thought that they were still defending the old, or the Republic. So from that standpoint, Piet, I think, is one of those guys that even before Star Wars and everything, they were like with Disney trying to humanize these guys, he was the first one that I think you could get that sense.
Yeah, well, even
that he was just a working guy.
Yeah, and even in Solo, when you're hearing like, them playing like the little recruitment videos as you're going through the little terminal, like, serve your empire, help, and it's just kind of, they kind of made it seem like the rebellion were kind of like the people who were they're almost like terrorists.
That's basically it. And that's the whole characterization that a lot of the people in the Empire actually thought.
Yeah.
Was it these guys? Yeah.
Yeah. And then a lot of, even a lot of the comics, even in Rogue One, where you see Galen Erso and he's just like, yeah, I thought I was helping. Mm-hmm. And then he realized like, I've been duped. Like, this is not, you guys are trying to create a super weapon. You guys aren't trying to help people. You're trying to, keep everybody in line with fear and everything like that. And so I think the more people started to realize what the Empire really was, they kind of.
Well, that brings up a good point, is that there's almost two different facets of the Empire. One, you had the guys that we all know, the ones that are in charge, like Tarkin, Vader, Palpatine, all those guys. They know what the Empire really is. They're the ones that are creating the, almost like the end game, the true nature of what this is. But then you get the other people that are just following the program, believing the propaganda.
Orders. Yeah, and it's no different than, I hate to say it, but like even in our own government system, you have people in the higher offices who they know the direction that they're trying to take the country, but those, who are serving our military and things, they're just following orders. They're just trying
the lower levels of government. They're just kind of doing their job, and they had the one little aspect of it that they're in charge of, and then they just do their thing and go home.
Yeah, but then some people do start to realize as they start to see and are in meetings or hear other things like, oh, wait, this is what we're doing? Oh, well, no, I'm not with this. And then now you hear other campaigns or people are campaigning against other stuff. So, yeah, it's cool. So I think I like Piet. Yeah, Piet was always cool with me. He was really cool, calm for the most part. I mean, you could tell he was nervous, but he always delivered as if he was confident in a way.
Yeah, and that's going along with that. That's why I gravitate towards Veers, is for the same reason. He just seemed like he had it all under control. He seemed like he was effective at his job, but he didn't really let Vader or anybody really phase him. He had that confidence, and he just executed. He didn't even seem particularly evil to me either.
No,
I mean, who knows? I could read like his old backstory and found out he's responsible for the massacre of this or whatever. But
and if he was, he probably was just following orders once again.
Well, and he was calm about it,
right?
So what about you guys? Who's your favorite Imperial officer?
Yeah, let's hear that. Let's hear from you guys. Let's hear, who do you like in the Empire?
Yeah, it could be really anybody in the Empire. We just want to know who you guys think could be an Imperial officer. It could be somebody, maybe a civilian.
Yeah, somebody we don't even know about.
Somebody we don't know about.
We're all for it.
Let us know at Head to Head SW, either on our Twitter, on Facebook, or in the comments section on the YouTube video.
Yes, sir.
All right, what do we got next?
So next we're going to talk about the Resistance trailer, the mid-season Resistance trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I still haven't watched this show.
Yeah, well, that's okay, because I finally, up until now, I had only seen 2 episodes of the show, and I had to keep saying that, but I am proud to say I've seen like 5 or 6 episodes of the show now, and it's really good.
Yeah, from the trailer, it looks really awesome. And
well, the mid-season trailer, it's like they're taking it up another level, and they're obviously now getting more into the Force Awakens timeline a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, it looks a lot like things are kind of heating up. It's not quite that dire yet, but it seems like things are kind of shifting from its happy-go-lucky beginnings to, a little bit more of a darker twist to things. A lot more explosions. It seems like the First Order is trying to take over some bases and stuff like that, and now they're going to have to kind of
Well, they kind of did a lightweight version of that anyway, because basically it centers around this guy named Kaz. He's kind of like this kid. He always wanted to be in the Resistance or whatever, and he ends up befriending Poe Dameron. And so I think, I'm trying to remember the first episode, I think he's stowed away on a ship or something like that. So Poe decides to make him like a spy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only people that know his cover are the guy that's running this like mechanics yard or whatever. And it's really about how he has to navigate balancing being responsible in his undercover job along with actually getting in these crazy adventures as a spy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it is geared toward kids, but, I mean, it's really good, and it does give you more canon-type material. So it's definitely worth watching.
Oh, yeah, I definitely would try to squeeze that into my viewing schedule.
Yeah, you should. I mean, the thing about it is the fact that you would think that it would just be, so outside of everything that's going on. But like I said, from this new trailer, It looks like they're going to be tying it in more into like the Force Awakens type stuff.
Sweet.
Yep. All right. Well, I guess we can finish up our drinks and move on to our next segment. What do we got?
Next, we have Duel of the Fates. For this episode, we want to know, I would like to know, who would you rather have train you in the ways of the Force? Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Oh, it's easy. Yoda. I mean, Obi-Wan, number one, if you think about it, Obi-Wan trains Anakin, and I don't necessarily think that he did as bad of a job, but you have to remember that when he took over the training of Anakin, he barely was he was a Padawan, and I think he got a little bit fast-tracked because he was barely out of being a Padawan by the time he ended up taking responsibility for Anakin.
Right.
So, I mean, one of the advantages that Obi-Wan had was, even though he was inexperienced, he was so by the book that he would be better off than, somebody... Well, I can't even say that either, because, like, Anakin trained Ahsoka. Man, I mean, she was pretty balanced.
Yeah.
And even by that time, Anakin sort of knew when to follow the rules, when to break them. But, Yoda, on the other hand... I guess you could say that, yeah, he's a little bit dogmatic in the, old ways of the Force and everything. But as far as, like, pure wisdom, ability, and everything, I mean, if I'm going to learn something, I want to learn from the top guy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, of course, I'm going to go with Yoda, too. But I think Obi-Wan was kind of dealt a bad hand. Simply,
yeah, you're right.
Because, he's dealing with somebody who is a kind of an anomaly as his first student. It's not like he really had any practice runs with like Ahsoka first and then maybe somebody else, and then he got Anakin, and he started off with this weird anomaly, this super powerful kid to begin with, who
everybody thinks is the chosen one or something.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's a lot of pressure, all things considered. So it's like,
no, you're right. I mean, it's true.
So I really would have loved, honestly, to have seen Obi-Wan train Luke, like actually been there, not pop up every so often, like some
but we don't
runaway
know.
dad or something.
I mean, he kind of, we get a little glimpse of what he would have been like, though, because he did sort of train Luke, and there's a couple of different scenes where he's training Luke in A New Hope.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I'm saying, like, as he matured through like Empire and Return of the Jedi, I mean, I know a lot of it was placed in Yoda's hands, and especially, Obi-Wan felt it befitting of him to kind of come back once Yoda died. He kind of had to, like, all right, well, I got to kind of fill in the rest for you.
Yeah, Lucy, you got some splaining to do.
Right. But I think that, and even like in Empire, you know, he kind of like pawned him off to Yoda. It's like, okay, go learn from Yoda. He's the one who taught me. And, you know, so then there's that. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go face Vader. And he's like, well, I can't help you. So it's just kind of like, I really would have liked to have seen like a present Obi-Wan to actually guide, because to see if he learned his mistakes from Anakin. Like what?
I think he did. And I use that because if you look at the way that he was training Luke in A New Hope, it was a very like easygoing, wise master. You know, he wouldn't let Luke get away with anything necessarily, but he was cool about it though. And he was very good-natured. I mean, honestly, I think that Luke probably would have benefited a lot because I think that Obi-Wan actually had learned all the lessons. I mean, everything that Yoda was trying to teach him, I think Obi-Wan could have done the same thing. Obi-Wan was certainly
qualified.
Yeah, qualified. And, you know, he was basically essentially a Jedi Master himself. So, I mean, I don't necessarily think that there was anything wrong with, like, I don't necessarily think there was any additional benefit to Yoda teaching him. In fact, Yoda, I think, didn't really want to teach him. He was very resistant at first. And you can understand why, because he saw what happened to Anakin. He's sensing the same things in Luke and going like, oh, no. Because the difference is that if Luke had turned, then it really would have been over. Because even if they had trained up Leia, you'd have Palpatine, Vader, and Luke.
Yeah.
I mean,
the only way that would have worked is if Leia could have turned one of them. Either Luke or Vader.
Or start trying to find like Ahsoka or see if Mace survived or you know,
anybody.
You guys, you know, you get a prosthetic hand and maybe come and join the fight. You know, that kind of thing. Because, yeah, I mean, it would have been too risky. And I think that's why Yoda. But then again, that whole thing in Empire Strikes Back was really weird to me because it's kind of like on one hand, you're talking about how you groom this kid. Like, okay, we're going to hide him on Tatooine. We're going to do that. We're going to reconvene or whatever. This is where we leave off in Revenge of the Sith. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, he's ready now. And now Yoda seems really resistant. Probably because he meets Luke and goes, oh, great, it's his father all over again.
So, and that brings up a good question, though. Do you think that Obi-Wan waited too late to reveal himself to? Because, like, if you really think about it, like, okay, he waited till Luke had no one else, and then he became a part of his life.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I say I would like an Obi-Wan movie, if not a trilogy, because one of the interesting things about that is how much did Uncle Owen, you know, what kind of role did he play in actually blocking Obi-Wan from having contact with him? Because, you know, you can see that there was a little bit of tension there in A New Hope. Even though they didn't actually have any scenes together, you could tell.
The mention of his name, yeah.
The mention of his name made him just like go, hey, you know, forget it, do all. I mean, it was just like you could tell that there was no love lost between those two. And so for all we know, Obi-Wan did try to contact and maybe train Luke, but...
Yeah, I think it was just in the circumstances, you know, of where it is that, and I think that's kind of where even what Snoke said in The Last Jedi, where he said, well, you know, darkness rises, light, you know, comes to meet it. And I think that's the reason why, that's the only reason why Luke was able to excel the way that he was, because Palpatine and Vader were like dominating basically the universe, and there was no one else who's really able to stop them except Luke, who actually is a descendant of the Force himself. And so he can be that strong light side. And so he maybe didn't need as much, I want to say training, because maybe some things became more instinctive for him because of his lineage and because the Force willed it. But for Obi-Wan to have trained Luke, it always kind of made me wonder, like, why did he wait so late? Because they said the same thing with Anakin. Like, okay, he was too old to begin the training, and then now you got
Anakin was
Luke,
like what, 10?
like maybe 8 or something stupid,
Right?
And then here's Luke 18. He's got his own speeder. He's he's and now he's got to go up against his father, and it's like, okay, well, at what point you got to do something. So you're either going to train him or not.
And then if you look at in light of all of this would have been true even if Obi-Wan hadn't been killed. But the fact that Obi-Wan pulled this whole self-sacrifice, which Yoda must have sensed or something.
I wonder if that was a game plan. Like, hey, kill
that's what I kind of wonder the same thing sometimes. Like, is this part of the plan, or did you just, when Obi-Wan did what he did, because obviously Obi-Wan learned from Qui-Gon on how to be a Force ghost, or maybe Qui-Gon taught Yoda and Yoda taught Obi-Wan, but...
How do you practice that?
Exactly. Number one, you know what? You better know what you're doing and get it right, because once you die, if like, oh man, how do you do this again? I mean, you have to get it right, like you said. But that's the thing. Even if it was just like an opportunity, like, okay, Obi-Wan goes, all right, I'm going to do more good as a Force ghost than I am if I continue to survive. Or maybe he figures, you know what, I can't defeat Vader, so let me just sacrifice myself, and then I can actually help Luke in other ways. Well, once this got back to Yoda, you got to wonder, okay, how did the plan shift?
Well, I think Obi-Wan's whole thing was like, he did it so they can get away. And I think that's the same thing that Luke pulled in Last Jedi, was that he did the same. He did the Obi-Wan trick, basically, like, okay, I'm going to distract Vader and all the other stormtroopers so you guys can get away, because I still have a way to still communicate with you and still be around. So that's why he told Vader, like, if you strike me down, I'll still be more powerful than you could possibly imagine. It's because I can still affect things even though I'm no longer present.
That's the other thing, too. I kind of wonder if, like, after that whole thing, if you went to Palpatine, it was just like, hey, so, I saw Obi-Wan today. Really? How'd that go? Well, you said something kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like, I was winning this whole lightsaber duel, and it kind of went how we thought it would go, but then he kind of said this thing. And
kind of disappeared on me again.
One, he disappeared. Two, he was, like, talking about how he'd be more powerful than I could possibly imagine. You got any idea what he might be talking about?
He's bluffing.
Exactly. It could be. But that's my point, though, is that it makes sense in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to look at the fact that the whole fate of the galaxy is dependent on Luke succeeding, and not just in the situation, but actually successfully becoming a Jedi.
Well, that's why Obi-Wan was like, run, Luke, run. He's like, I didn't die for nothing, boy. Get on that ship.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. And
he was like, look, man, you're screwing this up for me. Like, I had a plan.
But then the other thing, too, is like, and I mean, granted, a lot of times, I think people think, and again, this is really speculation here, but people assume that when Obi-Wan said, okay, basically turn off the computer, just trust your feelings, use the Force, that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
People thought, okay, photon torpedoes go. Luke used the Force to know precisely when to shoot them.
Mm.
I sometimes wonder if Obi-Wan didn't actually guide those in.
Possibly.
Because you can't count on Luke necessarily, and it's like you're leaving so much to chance. Maybe Luke did do it, but...
Or maybe, I think maybe what might have happened is, once again, my own speculation as well.
That's what we do.
Yeah. I think more so Obi-Wan was kind of guiding him when to shoot.
That could be.
Because I think the ultimate goal was for Luke to understand what the Force can do. So it will cause him to continue to be curious and to pursue it.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that Obi-Wan did, was like, okay, trust your feelings. And when he did it, it was like, oh, it went in like exactly when it was supposed to. And he knew it wasn't because of the targeting computer. He knew it was just solely because of something inside it.
Yeah, but if you think about it, though, like if Obi-Wan had actually guided him, Luke wouldn't have known the difference. He would have thought it was him.
Yeah, but that's
It
the
would have
whole.
been the same thing. So that's what I'm saying. It's the fact that it could have been, right, that...
I think Obi-Wan influenced it in some way. We just don't know which one.
Well, we don't. And like I said, I mean, Luke could have completely done it on his own, used the Force, knew exactly when to do it. But all I'm saying is that if it didn't work, Obi-Wan could have like, oh, you know what? He didn't do it right. That's not going to go in. Let me influence that.
It'd be hilarious if, you know how my mind works sometimes, but I think about these crazy things. Wouldn't it hilarious if like Luke shot it? He's like, no, not now. Stupid. You know?
Exactly. Like, oh well.
All right. I got it. But one of my biggest questions has always been, since we're talking about Obi-Wan and being a Force ghost, is that once you become one with the Force, do you become wiser?
Yeah, that's what I always wonder too, because like
do you have more wisdom than Yoda at this point?
Well, you would think that you would have more knowledge.
Yeah, because you are the entity, you know.
Yeah, like it's kind of like you're one with the Force, so you're not just tapping into the Force, you're immersed in it.
Yeah.
You can see, because the thing too is that if you think about it, Obi-Wan popped up with Luke on Dagobah. Well, that's an experience that Yoda couldn't have done, right? So it's almost like you have this omniscience and omnipresent
you could
type of a thing. You could be everywhere. You can know everything.
Yeah. And so it's almost kind of like, well, why still have Yoda training when Obi-Wan can do it? Unless you only can do it in certain spurts or something.
Well, the problem is that, and here's the thing, there's a lot of things that we don't know about Force ghosts. The other problem is that even the things that we're learning about Force ghosts now, that's what Disney sort of has turned it into. We don't necessarily know. I mean, Lucas talks about it on the DVD commentaries, and I would still say that that's like the best source to go to if you guys are looking for what a lot of this stuff was originally intended. Like, that would be the thing to go. All this stuff that we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes, that would be the source to go to, I guess, check references. But, I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where the Force Ghost thing still is relatively unexplored in canon. So we don't really know the totality of what they can do. I mean, we didn't know that Luke could do what he did, and he wasn't even a Force Ghost yet.
Right.
Imagine what he can do now.
Absolutely.
But you got a point. It's like, would you be better off being trained by a Force Ghost than an actual living Jedi? And what are the limitations of a Force Ghost?
Very good question.
See, that
opens up
we're
a whole
way beyond. I mean, it's sort of beyond the scope of our initial Duel of the Fates, but because we both pretty much agreed, it allowed us to have this extended discussion about these things. And these are the kinds of things, honestly, that make this franchise so fascinating.
Exactly. Yeah, and it keeps us doing these podcasts because it's constantly things that we're thinking about. Like, man, I wonder, or how does this work? And it just makes everything. And once again, it's kind of like that Obi-Wan thing where it just constantly lures you deeper into it. Like, man, I want to know more. I want to know more.
Yeah, and that's what Disney is banking on to continue making movies and
Taking
TV shows and forever. It's, and feeding us comics and all these wonderful things that they give us that actually deepen and expand this universe.
Absolutely.
Well, you guys got to let us know what you think.
Yeah, who's your favorite between Yoda and Obi-Wan?
Yeah, like who would you rather be trained by, Yoda or Obi-Wan? Let us know in the comment section. Let us know at head-to-head-SW on Twitter, on Facebook.
Definitely
whatever you guys
YouTube, leave it in the comments below.
Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to us, too. That's another thing. Actually, click the subscribe button on YouTube and the little bell that's next to it so you get notified when we have a new episode, because we're really trying to build a community there. So we would love for you guys to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
All right, what do we got next?
Next, we have From a Certain Point of View.
Ah, yes, the featured topic. I always say that, too. I do. I always say it. It's almost like a thing now.
So, has Lucasfilm gotten lazy with their posters for advertising and marketing?
Well, that's not a loaded type of a thing, is it? That's a good question. Have they? I don't know if they've grown lazy in their marketing and advertising. I just sometimes wonder if they're a little out of touch with what the Star Wars fans actually want. Now, I will say this. From The Force Awakens to Rogue One, I thought they were totally on point.
Mm-hmm.
Even The Last Jedi. I mean, granted, I know there was a lot of people that didn't like The Last Jedi, but you have to admit their marketing was really good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in spite of the fact that people didn't like it, it made over $1 billion. Actually, it almost made $2 billion. Or actually, it might have made more than $2 billion. I think it wasn't that far under The Force Awakens as far as total box office.
Right.
So, I mean, it made its money. It did its job. But sometimes I think, though, that they're losing out on opportunities to make things that I think Star Wars fans want to see, even though I think that they're changing that a little bit with the TV series that are coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like they're trying to market things like in a standard Disney fashion rather than, you know, I guess making it unique to Star Wars and what Star Wars fans would want. There's a lot of podcasters, a lot of vloggers that have a very good point when they talk about the fact that it seems like they're creating this whole wonderful expanded universe, this new canon. But a lot of the higher-ups that are making these decisions and coming up with these things, where the movies are concerned, they're not taking these things into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? And this question was derived from someone who wrote us about, you know, the marketing proposal. I couldn't find the gentleman's name at the moment, but
You're not talking about the poster guy, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Gareth. I got that actually. I got that right here. And we really do need to give this guy a shout out because Gareth Plummer.
There you go. Thanks, Gareth.
Yeah, Gareth. We really appreciate you bringing this stuff up. He wanted us to check out basically his whole video that he made about the whole marketing thing and posters and everything. It's basically an analysis of their movie posters, and he talks about what he thought was good about them, what he thought was bad, and it was a really interesting thing. If you guys check it out, just look in the show notes. We'll put a link to it. You know, it's a cool video, and it's definitely showing that there's all different kinds of videos that you can make, and you can take just one little element of Star Wars and you can focus on that. Like he focused on the movie posters.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree with his assessment to some degree. Like he had issues with the Last Jedi poster.
That's great. People even have issues with the Last Jedi marketing material. It's not enough that people hate the movie. People don't even like the posters now.
Right. And I mean, he didn't like all the red and everything, but I think that's...
Didn't he talk about something about the way that everybody was grouped together or something?
Yeah,
too?
like if you look at... And that's one of the things I can remember, you know, being a kid, when I first got the box set of Star Wars, and I remember looking at the artwork on the thing, and I was just like, wow. Like even the individual boxes of the movies and then the actual case that it came in. But I remember looking at the individual boxes, and I thought they were so cool because... Like you would have Vader's helmet in the background. It's like outer space, but then there's like a half dissolved Vader, you know, face in there, and it was just kind of creepy but cool at the same time.
Well, don't forget the Phantom Menace poster was insanely brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you see Anakin, but then you see the Darth Vader shadow on the wall.
Yeah, that one, and that's what I mean. Like I think that. With The Last Jedi, I think that was cool as far as all the red, because it's kind of like it signifies death and doom to something. So I remember when we first found out that the movie was going to be called The Last Jedi, and then we did see that the marketing was like, and everybody kept making those speculations when they saw red. That, someone's going to die. Someone's going to die.
Even the Star Wars font was red.
Yeah, the font was red. Everything was red. And that's why everybody was just kind of like, whoa.
Red's my favorite color, so I really don't have an issue with red.
But I think that, you know, colors do signify things. And I think red is a color of passion, and it's a color of power, too. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you really got in The Last Jedi. So I think it was very appropriate, simply because when you're talking about power, there was a lot of power struggles going on between Snoke and Kylo. You had power struggles between Poe and Leia. You had, all these different.
Man, you put a lot of thought into this. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, because it's like, I think that it was really, and I understand what he's saying because it didn't look like the other posters, but this movie wasn't supposed to look like all the other movies either.
Well, the movie is clearly different from all the other movies. Rian Johnson was definitely trying to take Star Wars into another, I don't really want to say another direction, but he's trying to add like another element to it.
Yeah. And
keeping some of the classic stuff in there, but taking it a little bit out of its comfort zone, especially since Force Awakens was such a throwback, specifically to Episode 4, but just to your classic Star Wars. But again, I think that that's what everybody wanted, so then again, even that drew criticism as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean. Like, I just think that what Rian Johnson was trying to do, he was really trying to expand Star Wars in a way that people haven't really considered. Yeah. And I think, with Star Wars being in that typical golden font, and then now you got like this big bold red, and it's just saying The Last Jedi. And, of course, at the end of Force Awakens, you didn't even see Luke until the last scene of the movie. So you're kind of like, all right, what the heck does this mean?
Yeah, I mean, it
so
clearly was not accidental. It wasn't like, man, we ran out of, well, just use red.
Yeah, we ran out of paint. So.
Yeah, we ran out. It's like, well, just do it in red. Looks good in red.
We got some red over here. I don't know. But come on, red, let's go. So.
Well, I mean, and that's the whole, you bring a good point. And honestly, I don't think that we could really totally bookend this conversation until we see some of the marketing material for Episode 9.
True.
Because that is going to tell us whether or not this analysis of the artwork for Episode 8 was on or not. Because, so if Episode 9 comes out, I'm talking about the posters and all that stuff. If it comes out and it's a little bit more indicative of what the movie might be about, or maybe it's a throwback, then we can definitely say, yes, The Last Jedi's artwork was done intentionally. And, because it was a different movie, it called for different artwork. And I can't help but think that, I mean, you are talking about the people at Lucasfilm and Disney. These guys pretty much know what they're doing. They're not infallible, of course, but I would definitely give these guys the benefit of the doubt. I don't necessarily think that they're getting lazy in their marketing. I think it's like what you said. I think they're being deliberate, and they're trying to make the marketing, the artwork, all the different things to be a little bit more fitting to whatever the tone of the movie is going to be. Yeah,
and you brought up a really good point at the last second, where you said that they're trying to change the tone of the movie or bring out the tone of the movie, and I felt like that way about Solo. Because when you look at the Solo marketing campaign, it's like Gareth said, there's a bunch of reds and orange, and it kind of had, to me, it kind of looked like a 70s.
Yeah.
Like Starsky and Hutch type.
Yes.
And that's kind of what the movie was, though, to me, though.
It really was.
Because it was kind of like that fun kind of action pack, especially once he hooked up with Lando, it was kind of like,
it did kind of have that. 70s
yeah. I mean, even with the way they kind of dress and just the whole vibe of it kind of had that 70s, action, like Starsky and Hutch type vibe to it for whatever reason.
Right, or like SWAT or something.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, it did kind of have that, it had the feel of it. It was also a little bit grittier, which a lot of movies in the 70s had kind of a slightly washed out, gritty look to them. Mm-hmm. And it sort of matched that tone.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, that's why I say I think a lot of this stuff is deliberate. I don't necessarily think that it's a lazy approach. I don't think it's a failed experiment. I mean, I guess that part is subjective. Maybe if certain people don't like something, then I guess it's a failed experiment. But if it's enough people, but I definitely think that they're taking a very calculated approach to the marketing. Because, movie posters, once upon a time, were an afterthought. Mm-hmm. Then they started realizing that a movie poster could actually be responsible for, you getting a ticket. And I mean, it might be like, oh, poster's kind of cool. Maybe I'll go check out the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's sort of a subconscious type of device. Now, the poster is really a major part of the marketing, you know, because, I mean, why wouldn't it be?
Yeah. I know, like, for Rogue One, you know, it had a very...
Oh, those are my favorite.
Rogue One.
Rogue One has some of the best posters. Like, all of them.
Yeah, all of them were really awesome. Like, that one, the Death Star one, it was just...
Oh, yeah.
That's still, like, one of my favorite, like... I got.
Then there was the one... Didn't they have one that had, like, the beach scene or something like that, too?
Yeah. And I think that's where Gareth was going, is that, like, you got a little bit of everything in the poster, like, and that's what a traditional Star Wars, you know, poster looks like. Like, when you look at The Force Awakens, that was like a traditional Star Wars poster, you know, because you had like Rey on one side, you know, with the staff, and you had Kylo on the opposite, and you had the distinct depiction of who's good, who's evil, generally on either side.
Well, then I think what the question has to be is, should Lucasfilm and Disney actually be messing with the tradition in this case, or should they stick with it and perhaps expand it?
Well, if we go that route, I think, once again, what serves the story? Once again, I think everything has to, you know, because, like I said, the Solo thing was cool, and it wasn't a whole lot of marketing. Like, well, no, I won't say a whole lot. Well, it wasn't a whole lot of marketing for Solo. That was one of the big problems. But
Yeah,
I would say, like, the poster, like, didn't have a whole lot of people on it.
No,
it was just kind of just him. Or you kind of saw one with Lando. And I really think that was cool, just because it had that 70s, like I said, that 70s vibe to it. Almost like a Coffee Brown or one of those type of movies. And I think that for some of the standalone, like Rogue One, because you're dealing with major events that took place, like you're dealing with basically the finalization of the Death Star, you know, and then you have Vader in this movie, and you have, you know, some of the big, even though Tarkin was CG'd and so was Leia, but I mean, you're dealing with major characters that we all grown to love, and it's a really gritty war movie, and that's kind of like what you really want to depict, and that's what was there. Like that, like you said, that beach scene was there. I remember, and you know, you and I always talk about the video side of it, or the trailer side, when we saw that one shot where Krennic, when he had that white cape on, he was walking across the water.
Oh yeah,
and we was like, man, that just, like, what the heck was that? But that wasn't even in the movie.
Well, here's the thing for me. I mean, it's a little controversial at times, because I go back and forth. The controversial part is that a lot of times I don't even care. Poster could just have the title on it in black. All I care about is the movie good?
Right.
And something like Star Wars almost doesn't even need the poster.
It sells itself.
It sells itself. The name sells it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, movie posters do occasionally make me want to see a movie. Like, way back in, wow, what year was this? 2005, 6, 7, somewhere in there. Shark Night 3D. Remember that movie?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always up for a good shark movie. And there hadn't been one since, like, Deep Blue Sea. And I remember I saw a poster at a local theater for Shark Night 3D, and the poster actually made me go, man, that looks cool. I really want to see this movie now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, a lot of it had to do because it had to do with sharks, but the poster actually made me even more curious because of the way that the movie was depicted. So sometimes, depending on the movie, a poster will actually make me curious enough to want to see it. The other side of that, too, is that I appreciate great movie posters.
Mm-hmm.
Something even as simple as the latest Halloween movie.
Yep. I knew you were going to go there.
It's a real simple poster,
mm-hmm.
but it's very effective. And it does drive your curiosity to want to see the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that because one of my favorite posters growing up was, and at the time, I hadn't seen the previews for it, but it was the Crow.
Oh, yeah, the Crow.
And that poster, I mean, he just looked cool. And I'm like, man, this just looks awesome. I don't even know what this movie's about, but he just looks sweet.
Well, the Crow, I mean,
and that was
that's a good example of it.
Brandon Lee was, that was Brandon Lee, but it's still like.
Well, even, I mean, if you want to talk about another one, Dragon, the Bruce Lee story.
Yeah.
Starring Brandon Lee, right? That was incredible.
Yep.
What other movie? Oh, Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you look at just some of these classic movie posters, man.
Yeah, those
I mean,
are classic
it just, I don't know. It just, there's some posters that actually do make you want to see the movie, but there's also posters that I think, like in those cases, enhance the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And just make you, either they make you more curious about it, or they actually are just beautiful pieces of art.
Now, I've always said this, and you and I have actually said this leaving the theater. Since we're talking about posters, we always said that one shot at the climax of Rogue One, when Vader's in the little corridor, and he switches on the lightsaber, and it's like the whole room is like red, and you just see his silhouette.
Oh, yeah.
And we was like, man, that would be an awesome poster. Now, if you saw that as just a poster and it said Rogue One, does that picture ruin the movie for you?
No, but I will say that it has the potential only because if you sell it that way, it makes it look like Vader's a prominent character in the movie instead of just somebody that pops in a few key scenes.
Right.
So in that sense, I would be very disappointed because I would expect like, oh, this is almost like a Darth Vader movie, but it wouldn't be. And actually, if you remember, there was it's another example where there's some stuff in the trailer that we never saw in the movie.
Yeah, like that TIE Fighter scene. I still wish.
Yeah, I know.
Still talking
You'll
about that.
You'll always bring that
Man. Because
But there was a couple of Darth Vader scenes. There was, well, actually, Rogue One was pretty guilty of that. I remember because they had to reshoot a lot of the movie, there was like practically that whole first teaser trailer wasn't in the film.
Yeah.
So let us know what you guys think. Do you guys think that, the marketing is really vital to the Star Wars experience? Or, do you think that Lucasfilm maybe is getting a little bit lax with their marketing? Do you think that they're relying too much on other elements? And maybe they're just letting the movie posters go? Let us know what you guys think. Write us at @HeadToHeadSW on Twitter and Facebook. And, of course, definitely leave a comment below this video on our YouTube channel. All right. Yeah, now it's time for my favorite segment, or at least one of them, Clear Your Mind. All right, this is where we take you guys' questions. And that's one of the reasons why it's my favorite one, because when you guys are submitting the questions, it shows that these are things that you guys actually care about, and so we know that whatever we're talking about, you actually want to listen to. So, what's our first one?
Our first question comes from Jed Swano.
Oh, cool name.
I know, he almost sounds like a Jedi.
Really? Yeah, it's Jed Swano is a total Star Wars name.
He asks, do you think that we will finally see the end of C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewie by the end of Episode 9? If JJ killed them off, would that be worse than Rian Johnson's Episode 8?
Another Episode 8 hater. Well,
don't hate the 8, man.
Apparently, Jed, he's got a massacre going here. See the end of C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewbacca?
Yeah.
But I do understand the question, because what he's essentially saying is these longtime side characters, they haven't been super prominent, especially in these latest movies.
Right.
Like Chewbacca, R2-D2, and C-3PO were very minor. C-3PO especially was, I think he was like in
maybe like
one scene.
I would say one or two tops.
Yeah, one or two tops in The Last Jedi. So it almost has the appearance like they're just shoehorning these characters in there just so they can say that Anthony Daniels has been in every Star Wars film and every Star Wars thing ever. I don't know, though. I don't necessarily think that we have to see the end of them. That's the problem. And there have been new rumors that are coming out, like about Lando's role. that he might be the latest owner of the Falcon, or that he somehow gets it back, which would make sense. You and I have been talking about that for months, if not years. So I could see Chewbacca playing into that. R2-D2 and C-3PO, they haven't drifted towards anybody. Like, R2-D2 in particular sort of went from being Anakin's droid to being Luke's droid. But BB-8 has more or less been shared between Poe and Rey. R2 still is kind of like Luke's droid, but I mean, it just, and C-3PO just seems to be there. Like, nobody really, I mean, I guess he's kind of like Leia's droid. You know, so I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see where they take them story-wise, because I think that that's really what's going to influence whether or not we see them in future episodes. I honestly don't think that they're necessary beyond the Skywalker saga films.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, when I saw this question, I'm like, wow, it made me really think, because honestly, I think we would see, at least maybe not Chewbacca, but maybe R2 and 3PO.
Yeah.
In some way, I think that they've kind of served their purpose and they've done their time. Like you said, I really don't see where, especially like now, and you got to look about it. Like you said, they kind of had their own masters in their own way. So Leia kind of had 3PO. You know, Leia is going to be gone after 9 because of Carrie Fisher being gone. So where does 3PO really fit into that? You know, R2, Luke's gone. So where does he fit in to all that when you have BB-8 is the new hotshot droid basically on the scene? So I can see them maybe in some sort of battle or their ship getting its, you know, oh, this will suck, but like to hear 3PO's like, it's been a pleasure serving with you, my friend, or something like that, and the ship blows up. I mean, you know, all our hearts are going to be like broken, man. It's like, man, like.
Well, and that's the only reason why I kind of lean towards the fact that we won't see their end, because unless there's some critical sacrifice or something like that, we really don't need to see their end.
Well, I mean,
you know, I mean, one of the nice things about the R2-D2 C-3PO story arc is that they're the one constant.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they sort of tie the whole series together in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how their roles play out in each of these various trilogies and how they're interacting with these new characters and they're bridging the old characters. So
I would love to see R2 pair up with Rey, though.
That would be cool.
I think I could see that because they're more they're more alike, and then Poe can keep BB-8 for himself. You know.
I think it would be interesting, believe it or not, if 3PO were with Finn. I think that could play up not only some great comedy, but there's
comedy
a lot of
that would be hilarious.
There's a lot of great stories that can come out of that too, because you can almost make the argument they could teach each other some things.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's all kinds of things they can do, and even honestly, well, you remember that I showed you that one time when we were working together. The whole Droids, 1980s.
Oh yeah,
animated series. That was actually pretty entertaining to me. I was really surprised. I mean, the animation wasn't that great, and it was cheesy. But I actually thought that there were some interesting moments in that. So there is a story for them. It's just, are they going to want to make it, and will it? You know, the Benioff and Weiss trilogy coming up. You know, you have Rian Johnson's trilogy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, do they really fit into these at all?
The Mandalorian, you know.
The Mandalorian. Well, the Mandalorian, I could see them.
Yeah, because it's still.
But then again, because you know where they end up, because the Mandalorian is.
Before.
Yeah, it's before The Force Awakens, so you have to be careful how you use them.
Right.
So, I don't know. We'll have to see, Jed.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting journey for all of us, to be sure.
Yeah. Chewie, yeah, I think that would be a hard one to lose too.
Well,
I think that would be harder than
all of
the
us
droids.
expanded universe fans already had to go through Chewie's loss once, and we got him back. Let's not do that again.
Right. Okay. Well,
all right, who do we got next?
Next we have Tara Page, and she wants to know, what do you guys think the big shock would be in episode 9?
That the fans will like it.
That would be a big shock.
That would be the big shock in episode 9.
That would be a big shock.
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't even think about it too much. I've had this outline for days, and it's kind of like I try not to do that. Like, I look at what we're going to talk about, and I try not to put too much thought because I want to keep the spontaneity of our conversations.
Right.
But I probably should have thought about this one more.
The big shock at 9. Either I feel like somebody's lineage will be revealed, or I guess that one would be Rey, really.
Yeah, like, okay.
If Rey's lineage is
Rey's
revealed,
lineage, or maybe Snoke's identity or origin or whatever.
Yeah.
That could be a big shock.
True.
Another big shock in 9 could be Kylo being redeemed.
Yeah, but I mean, that wouldn't be really a shock for me. I mean, because it's almost kind of like, almost in the back of your mind, you kind of wait for it. It's almost like, I want.
Well, it would definitely be the cliched, cheesy thing to do, but at the same time, to me, that would be shocking because I'd be like, man, I can't believe they're doing this.
It'd be a bigger shock if Rey went to the dark side.
Now that would be cool.
That's what I'm saying. Now, see, that to me would be a shock because I'm like, would they be that bold to do it, and would they do it correctly?
Or Han Solo, like, hey, I'm alive.
Oh, no. That would be some bull. It's like,
hey, we're not talking about what would be desirable. We're talking about what's a big shock.
Yeah.
That would be a big shock.
Then it'll go back to your thing. People wouldn't like it.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that we can probably both agree that the big shock or the big reveal would either be Rey's true lineage or Snoke's true identity.
Yeah, definitely.
Or
one person, or if Rey went to the dark side.
Or if Rey went to the dark side.
I think that'd be like the other.
Or maybe another, because I remember Yoda appearing in Episode 8 was like a big shock.
It would be awesome if Finn realized he had the Force.
Well, there's talk.
That was something that would be a shock.
They were talking about some sort of what was I reading the other day? He was getting a lightsaber. It was something that John Boyega said that seemed to indicate that maybe Finn does actually have Force abilities. And you're right, that would be a big shock. And how cool would that be if you had a stormtrooper with Force abilities?
Yeah, that would be, former stormtrooper, that is.
Well, I mean, the nice thing about that is when they shoot somebody, they can use the Force to guide it so they wouldn't miss.
Exactly.
That'd be good.
The only accurate stormtrooper.
The only accurate stormtrooper.
Well,
all right. I think that wraps up our show for today.
That wraps it up
or
today,
this
man.
Week, or one of them. All right. Well, as always, guys, subscribe to this channel. Hit the little subscribe button on our YouTube channel and hit the little bell right next to it so you guys are always alerted to our presence.
Yes.
And then, of course, hit us up on @HeadToHeadSW on our Facebook and Twitter. We'd love to hear from you guys if you guys have show topic ideas, whatever it is you guys want to talk about.
Questions, we'll take it all.
Questions, we're happy to hear from you. All right, well, that's going to do it for us this week. I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.